Last week I told you about some players you shouldn't panic about, do not drop, and now it's time to tell you who you should drop. These players aren't just off to cold starts, they might stay that way. So a lot of people are wondering, preseason sleeper Hunter Brown for the Astros after his historically bad start where he actually gave up 11 hits in less than one inning. What do you do with him? Well, I think you know my answer. You're going to have to just move on here. Look, I did mention Brown as a guy I had some interest in before the season, drafted him in a couple of leagues, but this was also somebody that we had to see what happened because he was coming off a pretty rough 2023. Last year he pitched to an ERA over 5 and a 1.36 whip. So really the chance you were taking here is that he took a step forward, that he showed some improvement, and somehow he's gotten worse. And this isn't overreacting to one bad start before his start where he gave up, again, 11 hits and 9 earned runs in less than one inning of work. The game before that, he gave up 5 runs in 3 innings. And his first start, well, it was actually good. He didn't give up anything to the Yankees, but he only went 4 innings. The optimism surrounding a young pitcher like Hunter Brown is he's got good stuff when he commands, but obviously command is a big issue now, and he would have to show something more than last year. Again, show some improvement, and instead, for unexplained reasons, he's taken a big step back. So at this point, we have nothing to go on here except for blind optimism, but right now he's looking like the next Alek Manoah. So I've got some questions from people saying, well, if he was dropped, do you pick him up and stash him just in case? I'm not going to bother. And the same goes for another pitcher that I thought could show some improvement, especially based on a strong postseason last year. That's Brandon Pfaadt for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Like Hunter Brown, Pfaadt is somebody who really had a rough 2023, big ERA and whip. The numbers just were not good, but then we saw something in the playoffs. We saw, albeit in some shorter outings, he was really good against some of the toughest competition and thought, okay, it's coming together. He's figured it out, and now he's got a chance from the beginning of the season to earn that rotation spot, and he isn't. Now, command isn't really the issue with Pfaadt because he's not walking many batters. It's just he is getting pounded. Look, out of all of his pitches that he throws, the only even semi-good one has been the four-seamer. It's his main pitch, but it's not like he's dominating with it. Even that has lost a tick. He's got 1 mile per hour lower on the four-seamer, but he's doing fine with that. Just everything else that's not a fastball is getting rocked. He's giving up a batting average over 300 to all of his other pitches. And that sinker, which is supposed to be his out pitch to induce contact, it is getting pounded. Sometimes young pitchers can get burned by making mistakes over the plate, but he keeps making the same mistakes over and over again. I just don't see it happening. So at this point, I'm not going to wait and see if something changes. I'm moving on. And I think we could all see this coming with Jose Leclerc for Texas. He's lost the closer job. He's officially been put into low leverage situations, according to manager Bruce Bochy, and there's a reason why. Of all the relief pitchers who entered the year as the main closer for their team, he's the one I was most nervous about. And again, this is just because it's what we've seen for him over the years. For all the guys who've been labeled a closer, he just never has really been the guy for a sustained period of time. 8 major league seasons, and yet he has a total of 41 saves, never more than 14 in a season. And compared to his career 41 saves, he's got 17 blown saves. And that is the issue that just doesn't come up clutch on a consistent basis. He's also coming off a pretty good season. Actually, last year had a 186 expected batting average against. I mean, you think he's got the stuff, he's got the opportunity. It was there for him, but again, he just never seems to take advantage. And so he has been predictably demoted already. Who's going to be the next guy to take his place? It's going to be one of the veterans, either Kirby Yates or David Robertson. It sounds like Yates is the guy, so I guess you could pick him up as a replacement. I still think Robertson is the better option, the safer option. But either way, it's definitely not Leclerc, and I don't think it will be again. If you love watching baseball and playing fantasy baseball, you probably love playing MLB The Show on PlayStation, Xbox, or Switch. Well, the best place to get those stubs without paying full price is MMOAH.com. On top of their already discounted price, you get an extra 5% off by using code Endgame. You can build your perfect Diamond Dynasty even faster by clicking the link in the description below and using our promo code. Now with hitters, it's going to take a little longer for a lot of these stats to stabilize. How are we really sure that these guys are just having a bad season as opposed to a cold slump that happens to be in April? Well, the issue with Austin Hayes of the Orioles is that he's not just cold, he's frigid, and there are about a dozen other guys waiting to take his place, and one already has. His name is Colton Cowser, and you should have picked him up already if he's available in your league. I don't know if Hayes felt the pressure, or this is just bad timing, or what, but maybe this has been coming all along. You look at Austin Hayes, he's been a solid, not amazing major leaguer. In the last few years with the Orioles, he's a guy who could produce some pretty good value for them, but no longer. Now he just stands way below the level of all these other outfielders that they could put instead of him. Cowser's obviously ripped the cover off the ball, but even besides that, Hayes has been on a kind of a slow decline. You look at his percentile rankings, he really isn't much better than replacement level anyways. Last year, the only thing he was even better than league average at was barrel rate. And then to come into this season where the Orioles have sky-high expectations and get 3 hits in his first 35 at-bats, he's basically giving that outfield job to Cowser or Kierstad or whoever on a platter. Cowser took it and ran with it. I'm sure he'll still start from time to time, but even so, it just doesn't seem like he's going to ever get that job back. And then another veteran on a really good team, good offense even, that is just underwhelming is Alex Verdugo. Going to the Yankees, you think this would be a good thing for him? It should be. Maybe it will wind up being just fine. But I'm just not in on Verdugo, and I haven't been for a couple of years. A few years ago when he was with the Dodgers, he came up as one of their better hitting prospects. Great eye, good hit tool, decent power. But what we've seen is he never really hit that next level, has not been a high-end player for fantasy. The batting average was kind of his calling card, but we've seen that steadily decline very consistently over the last few years. In the shortened 2020 season, he actually hit 308 that year. The next year followed up with a 289 average and then 280. Last year, batting average down to 264, and now, albeit early, it's down to 218. And even in that 2020 season, when he had a really good average, if you look, his expected batting average was far below that. And if he's not hitting for a really high average, what is he giving you? It's not power, I'll tell you that. The last 3 years, despite playing a lot, in fact, that's probably the best thing he's done, is over 600 plate appearances for 3 straight seasons. And yet in each of those seasons, he's never got more than 13 home runs in a season, and his max of RBIs was 74. Forget speed. Over those 3 seasons combined, 12 stolen bases. So he might go out there still and collect at-bats and slowly accumulate some stats. At the end of the day, you're really not getting much out of him. I'm totally fine moving on from Verdugo and taking a chance on a young player who's got any sort of upside. But a young player you're really getting nothing out of. Seemed like he had massive upside in the speed department, but Victor Scott has really just delivered a lot of disappointment. This is another cautionary tale not to get carried away with A, spring stats, B, rookie hype, and C, speed. Doesn't matter how fast you are, you don't get on base, you can't steal a base. And Victor Scott is definitely not getting on base with a sub 100 batting average. He's got a total of 2 hits in the past 10 days. And his ex-WOBA, that would be expected weighted on base average, is in the bottom 10 of the entire league. Honestly, the only reason he's still out there every day is the Cards have nobody else. All these injuries, especially in the outfield specifically. Lars Nootbaar is back, but even with him playing now, it seems like Scott, they're just needing him because there's nobody else in terms of outfield that they can just call up on the 40-man roster in the minors. Alec Burleson might start playing just because Scott has been so bad. I guess Scott's still out there for his defense, but man, he's actively hurting your batting average. It's just, it can't go on any longer, and I'm okay if you just cut ties. If it were possible to cut an entire roster, I would say it would be the Chicago White Sox, because honestly, at this point, that lineup looks like a glorified AAA team. One of the few players that is still, I guess, major league caliber, but barely, is Andrew Vaughn, who once was a really high-end hitting prospect. He's still owned in about a third of fantasy leagues, and some people are still holding out hope, but I'm done. I mean, sure, their offense is bad, but it could get better. He's hitting third. He's in his prime age. He's playing every day, but none of that matters. He can't drive in runs because there's nobody on base to drive in. He's not going to score runs for the same reason. And look, that power has just never really fully developed. Honestly, at this point, what we have from Vaughn is still just unwarranted optimism year after year. He's really just been mediocre at the major league level. And then this year, not even that. He's hitting 180, not a single home run, 3 RBIs entering the third week of the season. What are we waiting for? But Luis Robert is probably not even coming back this season now. Eloy Jimenez, who knows? Is there any help coming from the minor league system? There isn't, because anybody even worth playing, they've already brought up. There's no reason to really have anybody in this White Sox lineup. We'll always do our best to keep you on top of the latest fantasy baseball news and advise who to pick up, who to drop, who to trade for, and more, including live shows. Keep it locked here, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the latest video.